I had an idea a few years ago where I was going to do the first time that I've shot film in 18 years. Well, it took me 2 years to get around to it, so now I'm doing first time using film in 20 years. I've partnered with Robert's Camera and used Photo Pro. They gave me 3 film stocks for 3 different subjects that I shot in 3 days. And so now I am making this video to tell you what I thought about it, what my experience was, and to let you know a little bit about myself. My name is Zach Dobson. I'm a professional commercial and editorial photographer. I work in a documentary photojournalistic style, and I've been a pro for 20 years. Now, I started doing photography in high school, 1999, black and white film. Getting into college, I used a Nikon N70, and I shot color film, black and white, Tri-X, T-Max, but we always then scanned our photos into the computer. That's neither here nor there. I just want to give you a little bit of my background. So 5 years of shooting film, and I started using some digital during college. But when I graduated in 2004, I went fully digital because, I was working as a professional, and that meant I needed the speed, I needed the ease. All right, so 20 years of working as a professional. And so this idea came up. Roberts and Use Photo Pro was on board. They wanted to give it a shot. So here's what we did. So I had Ilford HP5 for shooting street photography. I had CineStill 800T for shooting a balloon glow. And I had Kodak Portra 160 for photographing a car show. So the camera I ended up choosing was the Nikon FM2 and a 35mm f2 lens, because that is basically the setup that I use on my Take Everywhere camera. It's a 35mm equivalent lens on a mirrorless camera. And so I wanted to be able to compare these two cameras as closely as possible and using a focal length that I am extremely comfortable and familiar with. And when I first started doing photography, I right away had a fully automatic camera. So I wanted that experience of the fully manual, old camera. And that in and of itself had its pros and cons, which I will get to. So what were my concerns going into this project? Well, one, I shoot digitally a lot different than what you need to do for film. Mainly, when I shoot digital, I'm always underexposing the image a little bit because it's easy to lose those highlights when using digital. Now, film is the opposite. If you underexpose, it's really easy for the shadows to get all muddled. And you have a lot more latitude in the highlights, so it's better to overexpose. So that was something I had to keep in my mind as I was shooting to break that habit of underexposing. The next thing would be, I didn't really think about this in the outset, that I was going to be locked into an ISO for 36 frames. I'm used to digital where, I go inside and I go to 800 or 1600, then I go back outside and I go down to 100, and then, it starts to get a little bit darker and I switch to 400, and on and on and on. I had to remind myself, okay, you're locked in, and that was a different change in mindset there. The other thing is being locked into black and white. When I was shooting the black and white film, I always shoot color with digital, and I'm looking for color. I'm focused on the color, and it just was a lot different than to be thinking in black and white. There's a lot of times where I'd see an image and I'm taking it in color, but I know in my mind it's a black and white image. But to be thinking about it, so I was focused more on the highlights and shadows and contrast and moments and form, and not relying on any of the color of the scene. So let's jump into the street photography. The Ilford HP5, I chose that because, the folks that use Photo Pro and Roberts told me that it had more of that classic kind of film grain, where there were maybe some other stocks I could have chosen that might be a little sharper and more modern. I wanted that classic look. I'd been looking at a lot of documentary photography and talking about it, and I was really liking the film grain of the black and white. So I really wanted to be able to see that with the 400 ISO film. And it was a fun experience getting out and trying to focus on that form, look for good light. When you use something like mirrorless, if you're using a Fujifilm like I do, then you can set the film simulation to black and white, and you're looking at black and white through the viewfinder. But when you're using film in this old camera, you're looking at color. And overall, I was really happy with how the street photography photos turned out. Now, the balloon glow was an absolutely ridiculous choice of subject. I really regret doing this. I had shot a balloon glow 10 years ago, and I forgot just how hard it is, because when you see the photos online, you see all these balloons gently glowing and it looks beautiful. But what's happening in reality is they're firing up these flames and your exposure is jumping like 10 stops in a split second. And on top of that, it's never like, even when they pull the flames down, it gets brighter and it pulls back. So you could have 2 frames in a row where you feel like it's lit up the same, but it's fluctuating so quickly. It's a very hard subject to photograph. I mean, I even had a hard time doing it on a digital camera. So what would have made this better was if I had a camera that was more modern and had aperture priority mode. So if I had those f100s that I had in college and I set it to aperture priority mode and I could fire off a burst of 3 or 4 frames in a row, I think I could have gotten a higher yield of good photos. I did get some that I was happy with. I wanted to try to get the flames and get some of that type of thing, but I knew how difficult it was and I only had 1 roll of film to use. So I made sure to get some where it was more focused on the balloon and the gentle sort of glowing when that happened. And overall, pretty good. It came out pretty good. Now, we picked the CineStill 800T because it had a little bit more of a neutral color profile as opposed to something like a Kodak Portra 800, which would have been warmer. And I thought I wanted more neutral because I'm trying to present things as they appear in real life. That's one of my goals with my photography, so I want the color to be accurate. But I think I would have liked a little more warmth in the film stock. But overall, I thought these turned out well. Now, the third thing I shot was this car show, and I had maybe 5 frames left on the CineStill film. So the first few that I did were with that. And the grain was interesting to use in the full daylight. This gets some interesting like halation around any highlights that you have in there, which some people like the aesthetics of, and I kind of didn't want that to happen. So, these are things that you can look up and research before you pick a film stock. But the color was nice, the grain was nice, but, I had this one photo that I took through the rear windscreen of the car as it was lifted up, and honestly, I shot that on digital and film, and I really liked the digital image a lot better because it was sharper and I liked having less grain and the color was a little more like the scene as I saw it. So in that situation, I did like the digital better. In switching over to the Kodak Portra 160, I was really interested to see how true to life the colors would be presented. And that's one thing that also I'd forgotten about film photography. With color film, you're really committing to a specific kind of profile. The colors are rendered a way that's very specific to each film stock. So it's not like digital where it can often be more neutral and I can change it and make adjustments to keep it in line with real life. You're kind of committing to this look and feel of a certain film, which a lot of people like. I picked some kind of outrageous colors that were there at the car show when I saw them to make sure to photograph those because I wanted to see how they were rendered in film versus digital. So the look and feel of the film is really cool, and I really appreciate that. But for the color accuracy, for me, coming into this as a digital photographer, I kind of like the color representation that I got better on the digital. But, people who have more experience with film, who know about the different stocks and how they represent colors, could maybe have picked out, a film in each situation to get the look that they were really going for. Now I want to talk about the camera itself, because if you've been doing digital photography primarily and you're thinking about giving film a try, I definitely have some advice in this area. And that would be this. Start off with a camera that has fully auto, maybe even a point and shoot, that has a more modern metering system that you can set to fully auto or aperture priority, which I would use a lot. And that will help you bridge the gap because it's already a big switch to be thinking of things in some of these different ways, that if you can take the functionality of the camera out of what you're thinking about, I think that would have went a long way. I think I got a little bit too cocky jumping all the way into fully manual because even when I'm shooting digital, I shoot fully manual. So I thought, I would mostly photograph that way. And I still would have, but it would have been nice to have auto in some of those trickier situations like the balloon glow. So those are a couple reasons why I'd look at point and shoot or fully automatic cameras if you're just kind of dipping your toes in the water. In using the fully manual mechanical camera, there are a few things that I ran into. One is with the winder, the film winder. On this one, I don't know if they're all like this, if you push it all the way in, flat up against the camera, it locks the shutter, so you can't accidentally take a photo. And I thought, oh, that's nice. I won't waste any film accidentally. But the flip side of that is sometimes I would accidentally push it in when I wasn't trying to, and then I'd miss a shot because I locked myself out. I also had the issue, I tried to remember to take the photo, wind the film, but a couple times I forgot. And there was one time I was walking down the street, and I really wanted to have some people in my street photographs, and there was a group of people riding segways right towards me, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. We're going to pass each other, and I'll snap a photo right in the middle of the street, shoot at f8, get lots of like depth. It's going to be great. And then nothing happened. Forgot to wind the film, so I missed the photo. So, that's all a part of it. Another thing that I ran into was the sharpness. I would have liked my images in some situations to be a little bit sharper. Now, I know that, shooting an 800 ISO film, you're not going to expect like tack sharp images, but I feel like I wanted a little more sharpness than what I was getting with some of those. But again, that's if you're trying film, the aesthetics of it are a big thing. So I think most people will not mind that at all. Now, a common thing I hear about people who've gotten into film photography is that they like the slowing down of it. They like how it forces them to assess a scene and think about it and take their time and think about the exact moment that they want to take the photo. And that's great if that's what you're into. But for me, I am all about action and movement and photographing people and doing things, and I take a lot of frames. In fact, a lot of times I'll take images in a 2 to 3 frame burst every time because there's people moving, there's different components happening, and if someone, blinks in that moment, it increases my odds of getting a photo that I really like. So doing the film and only shooting 1 frame at a time, it was a little bit limiting in that sense. Now, again, this is a situation where maybe I could have used something like that F100 and photographed in bursts like I'm used to. So if you like to shoot a lot of frames, consider using a camera with a motor drive where you can move a little bit quicker. I think that would have served me pretty well. So what do I think of the photos that I took? Overall, I'm really happy with the images. I wanted to prove to myself that I could take just as good of photos on film as I could on digital, and I think I did that. I think I got some really good images that I'm happy with, that I liked how they looked. I even got some action, like the 2 young men playing table tennis. I wasn't sure how that would go, if I'd be able to get any good action, and one of the shots, it froze the ball exactly where I wanted, and you could still see the other person's face, and I was really happy with that photo in particular. So would I do film again? Yes, in specific circumstances. So here's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in more black and white film, street photography, and I specifically would love to try a Leica, like an M6 or something like that, and see how sharp the images would look. I'd be interested in using the same film with a different camera, especially one like that that's really known for having very sharp focus, and see how I liked it. So that's one thing I'd like to try. I've also never used a medium format camera, so I'm very curious to see what that would feel like and how I would think of the images and what I would like with them. What would I photograph with that? Probably something like travel photography, maybe some street photography, but I could see, doing some national parks, doing some, cities that I'm visiting, doing some things like that, and really seeing what kind of quality I could get from a medium format camera. Leave me a comment with any additional questions that you might have, and let me know, would you like to see me try something else? If so, what? If I get enough requests, maybe I'll make a follow-up video to this. So thanks so much to Robert's Camera and Use Photo Pro for setting me up with this film and this camera and giving me a chance to try this for the first time in 20 years. They also processed all the film, scanned the film, printed the film, and I had a great time trying this out. They had at least 10 other cameras that I wanted to try. So I definitely could see trying some more of the stuff they have there. But it's a very cool setup. They've got a great selection. They have a very knowledgeable staff, very friendly. Every time I go in there, it's just a great spot. Love to visit them. So check them out for sure. Thank you.